Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about using single joint exercises to fill in the gaps after your big movements, your multi-joint movements. And one of the things that needs to be said here, and I've noticed, is that I've been very misrepresented over the years, very misrepresented in my stance, and I think some of it comes purely from those middle years a little bit, to where I was doing a little more minimalism, and telling people, look, you can build off the basics, and honestly, you can build your entire body off multi-joint movements if you really want. All right, you can get pretty much maximum development and close to maximum strength and things that way, but the case can be made that it's not always ideal, but you can do it. You can certainly do it, and it can't be done. And I'm not saying that's a wrong approach. It's just there's no reason to limit ourselves. And conversely, I think a lot of people do way too many single joint movements and they don't do enough big exercises. Now, that would definitely be a much better representation of my stance. Because if you watch my own training, you watched out of a lot of my clients, anyone who shows up and says, oh, I thought Blaha was all about compound movements, and which, by the way, is a big misrepresentation, because I don't actually believe compound exercises exist. Right? That's what people are calling them. I don't call them that, and I don't think most experts call them that. They're multi-joint movements, right? Multi-joint exercises, and we can define those in different categories, such as the classic lifts and things, barbell exercises, but there are a lot of machines and other stuff that are multi-joint movements too. So it's multi-joint and single joint is really what we're looking at for that, and for the words. And the problem with the other is the idea that you can isolate a muscle. And I think when I say that, that's what makes people think that I'm against smaller exercises, when I say that it is impossible to isolate a muscle, and even if you could, it would not be a wise idea to try. It's not a good idea. Now, that aside, when we talk about these things, I think it's important to understand that smaller movements can have their place, or single joint exercises can absolutely have their place. Whether it's a hamstring curl, a tricep press down, tricep extensions, back extensions, reverse hypers. These are all things that I use. I use a lot of dumbbells. Even if some of my clients do cables for shoulders. I mean, you guys have watched Emma in videos do lateral raises with a cable. So if I was against all single joint exercises, why are my clients who pay me doing these things? Why am I doing them? I'm not. And people need to understand they're just tools. That's all they are, guys. They're just tools. Okay? And the way that we should look at it for overall development is, looking at a well-structured program, looking at the amount of work there, looking at our weak links. We're generally going to do big movements or multi-joint movements. And then we can shore up our weak links with smaller exercises. Okay, and that's a perfectly reasonable approach. And your weak link can be, whatever the weak links are towards your goals. I tend to promote a slight bias towards the go muscles instead of the show muscles, but with a big focus on overall development. And ironically, a lot of the people who everyone thinks, well, this group over here is all about maximum hypertrophy, and then strength athletes are, and it's like, what? How is these other groups? How is someone chasing aesthetics pursuing maximum size? They're not. What are you talking about? They oftentimes aren't even trying to get as big as powerlifters are trying to get. They want a few muscles to get big, and they want other muscles to stay lagging oftentimes, or they just don't train whole parts of their body. That's common in those circles. But even then, the ones who are doing the other, they just have an overemphasis on certain muscles. Okay? And that would be stuff like the shoulders, delts, traps, right? Particularly delts. Big deal if you're chasing that look and just getting really lean. But really, this is what we should be doing in general. No matter what your goals are, you shore up your weak links, whether it's a visual weak link or performance weak link. The idea is the same. Of course, I only care about the performance end, but I have plenty of clients who look like bodybuilders. Because guess what? if you maximize size and you get as big and as thick as possible, I mean, you usually, let's be honest here, guys, you're benching anything above 315, squatting anything above 5, deadlifting anything above 600, and you get lean, you start getting lean and you've built your delts at all, you're going to look a little bit like a bodybuilder. You are. I'm not saying pro bodybuilder, but you're going to have more of that look if you get lean. So it's a body composition situation. But again, the point here is that we can use the smaller movements. And that's generally what I promote. I don't promote sets across. I don't promote block training. I don't promote any of those things. What I promote is either doing max effort work, dynamic effort work, or some sort of heavy AMRAP on a big movement followed by large amounts of hypertrophy work. And that hypertrophy work can be a combination of multi-joint and single joint exercises. And one of the benefits to some single joint movements, they're easier on overall recovery. And we have to look at which muscles have reached their the point to where any further training is not helping them. Okay. Triceps oftentimes are one of those muscles, for example. Biceps don't tend to be. I think people over obsess on biceps, and their biceps would be just as big if they did more back work. And the reason I say that is, number one, bicep tendons get inflamed easy, and doing a lot of supine work is not the best thing you could do. I could argue it's not a good idea at all. I could argue it's a really bad idea. And that would be a fair argument. It'd be a fair argument that you can't argue against. There's plenty of data on it. A lot of supine movements can inflame the bicep tendon. They can cause it to rupture. Orthopedic surgeons will tell you that they fix way more bicep tendons from curls than they do deadlifts. So just an FYI. People tear biceps all the time curling. Regular gym bros all the time. Happens every day. Plus biceps seem to have one of the lower thresholds for effective volume. Meaning, out of all the major muscles in the upper body, biceps seem to need the least total reps and sets and work, right, to actually get really good growth stimulus. So accordingly, if you think about it, most of their work can be handled by your back exercises. I mean, look at Mike there, right, knocking out the pull-ups and stuff. Mike's got big arms. He doesn't curl. We do a lot of tricep work for his bench, and he's drug-free. But you guys see the point here. Overall, though, there's going to be muscles that may need a little bit of extra work. Triceps tend to have a higher volume threshold than, say, pecs and delts and front delts. See the issue there? Means you're leaving a lot of tricep gains on the table if you only do pressing. Not saying pressing can't build big triceps, but doing a little bit of extra stuff can be advantageous. The same with certain heads of the delts and things, getting in doing some extra shoulder work, depending on what's going on with your recovery, may be an easy way to boost your delt gains without beating your body up. Same thing with maybe your hamstrings or your low back, so on and so forth. Okay, so there's a lot of smaller movements we can do to facilitate growth in areas that are lagging a little bit without excessively beating up other areas. Things like the chest. Chest is a perfect example. It actually tends to recover fairly slowly, and it's a big muscle. And we hit it hard with benching and other stuff. So there's a time when maybe we can handle just our benching and pressing for our chest. You can build a big chest that way if these are done correctly, and you may want to work on the other muscles a little bit more with some smaller movements. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.